everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kat, and for today we have 4 palettes that we are going to be looking at, and I've been excited about this one for a while because it took me forever to get a hold of all of these palettes because the shipping was crazy from a few of the companies, and it just... So these are all pastel palettes, so we are going to be doing a speed review of the pastels, and I know that there are a whole bunch of other pastel palettes that have come out recently, so I'm probably gonna have to do like a round 2 of the pastels soon, but these were the first round that I had, and 3 of them came out in like February in preparation for springtime in March. And I didn't get some of them until like May. So it has taken me a while to amass all of them, but we're gonna talk about all 4 of them. 4 different brands. Really excited to talk to you guys about it and let you know what my thoughts are. I have 4 different looks that I created, so we're just gonna get into absolutely all of it. So first up, we have from Klarity Kosmetics the So Mermaizing palette, and this guy looks like this on the inside. So it has 10 shades and very pretty, definitely very pastel-y. I think what I really like is that it has like a matching shimmer for every single matte shade, so I thought that was really cool. And there are several shades in here that are also kind of duochromy, so it's not just like a yellow shimmer to match the yellow matte, it's like yellow shimmer that has greens and pinks in it, and so I thought I would swatch a couple of them for you guys. So speaking of that yellow one, that is this guy, and it definitely has like some pinks and greens in there as well. So as you come in close, you can kind of see a little bit of those shifts, definitely a little bit of the green, a little bit of the pink. So very shifty, but also very transparent. And so that was something that the majority of the shimmers I noticed was that they were all definitely meant to be more of toppers where you had to build it up a little bit rather than using them as like a look all of their own. Then this is one of the other duochromy shades. This is Beach Please, which as I swatch it looks purple, but it also has yellows and definitely greens. There you go, you can definitely see the purple shifting into kind of a greenish, almost turquoisey shade, but super duper fun. Really enjoyed them. I will swatch the mermaidy shade for you guys as well. That is the Call Me On My Shell Phone shade. Ah, yes. Look at that mermaidy shade, all the blues and greens and golds in there. So that is the thing that I really enjoyed about the shimmers, is that they are all super duper shifty, so you're not just getting a straight metallic, you're getting something that's super duper fun to apply on there. However, there are some critiques as well with this palette. The matte shades themselves are very muted. Like when you look at them in the palette, they are already super duper pale, but like trying to apply them, it took forever to build it up to even like a moderate level of opacity. And I get it that pastels are a little bit lighter, but I still expect to be able to see them. And in like this particular look, it's a very pretty look, but the only reason why you can even hardly see the shades is because of all of the shimmers that I just piled on to get any kind of color, because the mattes really just were not showing up at all. Also, when you were applying the shimmers, even though they swatch beautifully, I would not recommend using just a dry brush, even though that's kind of like my typical go-to. I would recommend either using your finger or using some kind of setting spray or glitter primer, because if you're just gonna go in with a dry brush, it's gonna kind of, they're very dry, very light shimmers, and so you have to be very delicate with them. And so if you go in with a dry brush, they're just going to kind of sprinkle themselves away, and so you're never going to see it. So I would recommend using some kind of assistance, whether it be your finger or using some kind of product along with it. I will say that longevity wise, the shimmers don't last forever. There are definitely some other metallics from Klarity Kosmetics that I have where the staying power is significantly more. With these, it's kind of, you have the initial application, which is really pretty, but then a few hours later, all that you're kind of left with is the sparkle of the glitters. You don't really have the shift or the sheen that you get with a good pigmented shimmer that does kind of dissipate after a few hours. And so that's just something to keep in mind, is that it's really great like if you're just looking for something for like pictures, but if you're wanting it to last all day, this is probably not the palette I would go with. Also, I'm doing my best to embrace the the curly hair that is me, but it's going everywhere, so I'm just shedding all over the place. Don't worry about it. All right, next up we have from Give Me Glow, we have the Pastel Dreams palette. Yes, I did totally forget the name of it and had to look. So this is this guy. So we have 12 shades in this one, and there are also matching shimmers for every single one of the matte shades. And with these, I will say that there's not quite as many like duochrome type shades, and they are more of a just straight metallic rather than a sheer shimmer like this. So first we have Too High for this, which is more of a green shade, and you can definitely see the difference between the two on the level of opacity. So these are definitely more sheer. This guy definitely more opaque, gives a more normal metallic level of coverage, but only has like a slight shift between green and gold and is very, very pastel. So with these guys, you do get a little bit more of different levels of pigment, whereas with all of the metallics, like even let me do the blue one and the purple one for you so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the blue one, which is Pika Blue. And then this is Lavender Sky, which is the purple one. So these are the two deepest metallics that you will get, and even they're definitely matching that pastel vibe, where it's not super duper dark by any means. And all of them, the only real reason why they have any kind of shift is that it seems like they all have a gold mixed in with whatever the shade is. And so that's the only real shift that I'm seeing for any of them, is between whatever the actual shade is and then a gold mixed in with it. But as far as like shifting between many colors, you're not going to get that. But all of them do have this level of opacity, which is very, very nice if you are trying to build it up, which as we look at the matte shades, it's good that you have metallics that are able to build up a little bit more of that pigment. I will say that compared to the matte shades from Klarity Kosmetics, the matte shades in this palette were definitely far better with the level of pigment that you were getting. Even though they're pastels, you were definitely able to see everything. There was only one shade that was difficult for me, and that was the orange shade, but I think that's just because that's very close to my skin tone, and so I think that's why it didn't show up as much. But literally all of the other shades showed up really, really nicely, blended together with the metallic shades really, really well. I will say that the look that I had created originally did not do the palette justice, because I was trying to go for a very specific type of look, but it didn't require a ton of pigmentation, and so I wasn't getting the full effect. A few tries later, where I was just doing stuff for daily looks, I was able to see the full effect of the palette, and the matte shades are definitely really nice and pigmented. So I would say out of the two of them, if you're wanting a more pigmented pastel palette, I would definitely go with the Give Me Glow one. But if you're wanting those fun shifts to the shimmers, then I would go with the Klarity. So they both have pros and cons. So it just kind of depends on what exactly you're looking for within your pastel palette. I will also say that the shimmers had no fallout, none of the mattes had any fallout, and so that was really nice about the Give Me Glow palette, was that there was no mess. I also was able to use a dry brush and everything applied really, really nice, and surprisingly, the yellow shimmer was like super duper bright. It was not muted at all, and I was kind of expecting that one to be like, eh, but that guy, ooh. It was pigmented for sure. Alright, for the last two palettes, they are both pastel palettes, but they do also have some deeper shades mixed in as well. And so they're not just pastel palettes. So I wanted to kind of get a look at both of them as well. So the first one up is from Glam Shop. We have the Remix palette, which I already love. This tie-dye effect on here is super cool. And then the palette inside looks like this guy. So you definitely have a good mix of pastels as well as deeper shades that go along with those pastels, so you can create a look that has like a lot of depth to it. So it's essentially the entire front half of the palette up to here is all pastels, including that guy up there. And then the bottom, starting down here, over is all of your deeper shades. And I really enjoyed having like a good mix of both so that you could create like a nice blended look, because I do like having looks that are like half bright, half deeper. So I really appreciated that about the palette. As far as the matte shades go, they were all super duper pigmented, including the orange shade, which was surprising, especially after how the orange one in the Give Me Glow palette went. I was not expecting any orange shades to really work for me, and that one was also very, very bright, so I really enjoyed that. I will say that the cacao shade that is right here, this kind of goldish one, was very, very crumbly, and so you had to be super duper careful as you were dipping your brush in, because it just kept going absolutely everywhere. And so you definitely had to have a delicate hand with that one. And then one of the other shades came across as very, very oily, and I think that's like, you can kind of see in the palette where there's a little bit of the oil on this guy right here that has kind of spread out a little bit. And so I think whatever the formula was that they were using for that particular shade, it made it a little bit unappealing for me to want to use it, because it was just super duper greasy. So I ended up not touching that one really at all. But all of the other metallics were the typical Glam Shop formula, just absolutely stunning, went on beautifully, blended together perfectly. But let me go ahead and swatch a few of the shimmers for you guys. So we have really nice pastel, kind of turquoisey greenish blue, and that guy is definitely like, it's halfway between the opacity of these metallics and then the sheerness of these guys. So you can see where it's like halfway in between, and this guy is definitely a really nice kind of topper shade. I will say that the shift on this one is very similar to the Give Me Glow one. And then we have a purple metallic that is really nice, that kind of goes from like a lighter lilac-y to, when, depending on how the light hits it, it gets a little deeper. So that is a super duper pretty shade. And then we have a deeper bluish shade, almost like a darker teal blue for that one, but very, very pretty. The only thing I will say is that as far as the shifts go, none of these guys really had a ton of shift. They were just kind of whatever the shade was, that's what you were going to get. And so as far as like duochrome or multi-chrome shifts, you're not really going to see that with this particular palette from Glam Shop. A lot of their other palettes do have that, but this one, not so much. They are just kind of whatever shade it is that you see in the palette, that's kind of what you're getting. But they are still really, really nice. And because they are not so opaque, you are able to blend them out really, really nicely. And so they become a bit more pastel as you work them in with the lighter shades. And so the look doesn't end up being super duper dark. You have like mostly pastel with like a little bit of a fade on there, so very nice. I definitely stepped a little bit out of my comfort zone with the look that I created. I don't use like a ton of those types of shades, but I thought it was really nice, like that everyone on Instagram was like, oh, it looks great, and I was like, thank you. I don't do that look a lot, but I really thought it ended up turning out pretty good. So let me know what you guys think of that one. The one thing that I will note is that with the metallics in this particular palette, there was a decent amount of fallout. And so even though the other two pastel palettes had like hardly any fallout, the Glam Shop one definitely did. And so if you're going to be doing your eye look, I would suggest doing it first and then doing the rest of your face, because a lot of the shimmers just kind of went everywhere and it was just glitter all over the place. So definitely something to keep in mind as far as that goes. But the shades blended together really, really nicely. Really enjoyed the color story that we had on here, and I mean, I think it's a really good one, but we all know that I absolutely love Glam Shop, so have yet to come across a palette that's ever really disappointing. Alright, and then last up we have the Et Tu palette from Notoriously Morbid, and I grabbed this guy because I felt like it has a really nice blend of pastel shades and deeper shades, and the whole color story goes really, really nice with each other. I'm trying to like not tip it up too much because this guy, I have repressed it, but it keeps breaking, so I gotta be real careful. It is a little bit more on the pastel side than what the Glam Shop one was. Even if these guys do look a little bit deeper, it's because I can't, like, you can see a little bit more. Like, it is fairly pastel. I will say like the two brown shades at the end, and then perhaps this purple are the deepest shades on there. Everything else, even if it looks deep in the palette, does end up swatching and showing up significantly lighter than what you would think it looks like in the pan. So definitely an absolute pastel palette. So the matte shades all blended beautifully, worked really, really nice and easy, not like barely any fallout at all, so that was really, really nice. The shimmer shades, I have mixed feelings on the shimmer shades because the normal shimmer formula of the metallics was absolutely stunning. Like, let me swatch a few of these. Like, this purple shade has an absolutely gorgeous shift between like pinkish purplish and blue, and is just an absolutely beautiful topper shade. So there it comes off pink to a little bit of purple and ever so slightly blue, and works really, really nicely on top of the matte purple shade to just kind of bring it out a little bit more and make the look a little bolder, but just a stunning shade. The pink shade has a nice gold reflect with it as well. Also really nice, kind of a pink to peachy to gold. And they're both that like medium level of opacity where they start off a bit more sheer, but you can definitely build it up. So you can have them either be a topper where you just layer them, or you can build them up to where they're on their own. Worked really, really nicely. My critique is that I didn't realize that several of the shimmer shades are pressed glitters, and they are not the easiest of pressed glitters to work with. And because I didn't realize that initially, I was just trying to go in with a brush, and that was a mistake. It got glitter literally everywhere, and it looked super duper patchy on my eyes. And so had I known that, I would have just gone in directly with like a glitter primer and it would have been fine. But because I didn't know that, it just like, the whole look got like really, really glittery and just went absolutely everywhere. And so that is definitely something to note, that like 4 of the 8 shimmers are all a pressed glitter type formula. And so just kind of keep that in mind. They are super duper pretty though. They are definitely more gritty, so you want to be a little bit careful with that. The first one is a really nice mermaidy blue. And there's that guy. And as they swatch, they look like a normal metallic, which I think is part of what was throwing me off, because when I swatched everything, I was like, all right, got some really good metallics. And then when I went in with the brush, it just like crumbled and acted definitely way more like a pressed glitter. So here's the purple shade, which is also very, very pretty, but definitely on this one you can see a bit more of what I'm talking about with how it's definitely performing like a pressed glitter, where you have to build it up and definitely use a product to get it to not be quite so splotchy, and I was not ready for it. And the most beautiful shade out of the entire palette is this gorgeous yellow in the corner here. It is all the multi-chromey iridescent-y vibes and is so, so pretty, and it just shattered. And I tried putting it back together with like using the alcohol and just smooshing it all, and it just did not want to work, and so I'm devastated because that is such a gorgeous shade. That was my main critique, was just with the pressed glitter formula, that it was a little bit difficult to work with. But if you are someone that doesn't mind having pressed glitters in a palette, this palette was absolutely stunning. I really, really enjoyed it. The one tricky thing with Notoriously Morbid is that their palettes usually are limited edition, like all of them, where it's really like you either have to get it right away or you miss it. And so that's the only thing that's a little bit difficult with how they work. But I would just say, based on the several palettes that I have from them, their formula is really, really good. It's super consistent. Their metallics are stunning. They have some really, really nice multi-chromes as well that you can get as singles that are gorgeous. And so I would recommend just checking them out, either grabbing some of the singles to try or grabbing one of their palettes once they're available. They have their like anniversary palette. I think it's for like either like 5 or 10 years. I don't remember for what year it is, but they are planning on bringing that back, and that's the Absinthe and Lace palette, and I missed it on the first go, so I have just been like waiting for the email notification So if you can grab that one, because that does also have some really good pastels and neon shades as well as some grungy shades in there, I would highly recommend checking that guy out because it is super duper pretty. And so yeah, I think Notoriously Morbid is one of those brands that like not enough people are talking about because it is super cool. And if you enjoy like a grungy, like definitely 90s grunge type vibe, that company is the company for you, and that is my bread and butter. So yeah, that is all 4 palettes. I would love to know what you guys think of all of these. Have you guys picked any of them up? Were your thoughts different than mine? Did you have a different experience? Do you agree, disagree? Either way, let me know. I would love to get your guys' feedback on there. But this was yet another speed round of reviews, and so give me a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you did not, and if you made it to the end of the video and you have not yet subscribed, I would sure love it if you kick a subscribe my way. We talk about indie brands on here, tons and tons of eyeshadow palette reviews, lots of colorful makeup, and so if you're into that, join me on here, kick a subscribe my way, and hit the notification bell so you can check out whenever I've got videos coming out. But other than that, you guys just go have a good one.